then just to kind of jump into the micro, what does your daily week look, or your weekly program look like? Did you have like rest days and work days?
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
how do you set it up? And then do you use time blocking? Like, can you just run through either a hypothetical week or your next week?
Sure. Yeah. So what I do, this is my process. So on Monday morning, first thing I print up my weekly plan, which is just the tactics that are due this week from the system, right? And I typically have, I know what my standing meetings are; those are already in my calendar. But I'll take my weekly plan, and then I'll identify blocks of time, which I call my strategic blocks. And generally one's enough, maybe a couple of them. It depends what I'm doing. If I'm writing, I might need even more than two. But I'll put the blocks of time in my week, and then I'll, which I would call a strategic block. And then in that strategic block, I'd write out the tactics I want to get done in that strategic block. So I'll, it's like Tuesday morning, I'll have a 3 hour block and I'll plug in, complete chapter 3 or outline chapter 3 or, whatever it is I'm working on from the plan. And then I'm not really as good with what we call the buffer blocks. I use them sometimes, but the buffer blocks are blocks of time where I'm going to just knock off my to-do. So make my phone calls, do my email, that kind of stuff. I usually do that Monday morning. I don't always do that as well as I should, I suppose. But those buffer blocks are designed to kind of collapse all that activity that might otherwise interrupt me and put it into a block of time where I could just nail it all at once so I don't suffer the interruptions. Because research from a few years ago showed that every time you get interrupted on deep work, you lose somewhere between 20 to 30 minutes per interruption. Even if it only takes a second to respond to that interruption, it takes a lot longer to get your head back to where it was before you got interrupted. So I try not to, if I've got a lot of really heavy duty work I'm doing, I try to use my buffer blocks to kind of isolate that work from that. And then I am a big fan of personal time. So I don't have any time taking breakout blocks in my week where I can just go and go outside and go for a walk or read a book or do something stupid, whatever I feel like doing, because I think breakout blocks allow you to kind of come back, recharge, and refresh, because people can't work for ever and not just burn out, right? You got to recharge and regenerate yourself. So that's kind of how I do it. So I have strategic blocks, buffer blocks, and I occasionally have a breakout block or 2 or 3, and that's how I lay out my week. I never ever get the week to work out that way, but by having it kind of planned like that, I can come closer to it, right? I mean, the world is just too, unpredictable to be able to lock in on, blocks of time perfectly. But if you have an intention, you're going to get closer to it than if you just kind of show up and just do what happens in the moment. You're going to kind of drift along.
Yeah. If something comes up, if your Tuesday gets thrown out of whack, do you push everything back a day, or like how do you decide if it's what to stick on the system and when to be flexible?
Yeah, basically in my life where I'm at right now, it's a choice if I decide to let something blow it up. I don't. Sometimes I say I'm not going to let that blow it up. I'm just not going to do it. Other times, though, there's emergencies that come up, right? When I say other people's emergencies, I don't necessarily let them become my emergencies, but I have my own. And so if something happens, disrupts me, then, I'll try to get it done in the week, because if it slips from this week to next week, you start to fall behind in your 12-week plan. You start to fall behind in your ability to hit the goals. So, if it's Tuesday morning when I should have had my block and it gets blown up, then I'll schedule it for later in the week. If I have my blocks scheduled later in the week, my strategic blocks scheduled late in the week, and something blows up, then I'm in trouble, because there's no more week, right? Now I'm going to have to do it next week. So I try to front end my week with the work, so that if I can't find the time when I plan to do it, I still got a couple of days where I can get caught up if I have to. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah.